Hey, welcome back to the West End Cultural Center Tune In Video Music Lesson Series. This is the second guitar lesson. So thanks for coming back, and thanks for practicing your warm-up all week to get our hands strong so that you can do the things that we're going to ask our hands to do today. So some students, when they come back after the first week, they say, like, I'm really, really good at my warm-up. Check this out. Sounds great, right? But what's the matter? We're using one finger for every single note. And that's not the idea behind the warm-up. I mean, the idea behind the warm-up isn't to, like, hear it, right? Because it's not that fun to hear. The idea behind the warm-up is to use all our fingers. So even though if you're doing it with one finger, you might be making the right notes, that's not the point, right? Nobody really wants to hear those notes, but they do want you to use all your fingers so that you can become an amazing guitar player one day. So let's do it together, and let's do it really nice and slow and even. So what I mean by that is, we don't want to go like this. This is wrong. Right? Because it's kind of, once you get the hang of it, it's easy to do 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then you go, oh, I like to play fast, so then you go fast. But the idea is to do it nice and slow, making sure you're on the very tips of your skeleton fingers, like we talked about last time. And also to do it slow so that you don't have to take a huge break when you're switching strings, right? Because when you're on one string, it's easy to go fast, right? But when you have to, like, go up to the next string, oh, I got to put my finger someplace new, and all of a sudden you have to take a break. But we want to do it nice and slow so there's not a huge break when we change the strings. So here we could even count ourselves in. It's good to, like, sort of imagine, hear yourself playing it before you try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we go. That's the spider on the way up. So don't worry, like, it's natural. Like, if it's not totally even, right? Yours might sound like. Right? It's natural to, like, kind of, like, take a break in between strings and, like, have to, oh, I gotta do something. But that's still better than, like, going as fast as you can and then taking a big break. So try and go nice and even. And the next thing that we're going to add is coming down on the spider. So once we've gone up all the strings, right? So I've kind of reached the end. I've gone 1, 2, 3, 4 on the highest string. Where do I go after that? Well, we come back down. So 4, pinky finger, 3, ring finger, 2, middle finger, 1. And then we got to switch strings on the way down. And this can be tricky. A lot of people find this very uncomfortable because what's happening, we're leading with our pinky right now. And our pinky tends to not be very strong, and it's kind of uncomfortable. So to, like, put that down first as our first note, that can be very uncomfortable. But that's okay. That's why we're going to practice it. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Come down to the B string. 4, 3, 2, 1. Come down to the G string. 4, 3, 2, 1. Come down to the D string. 4, 3, 2, 1. Come down to the A string. 4, 3, 2, 1. Then finally the lowest E string. 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we're going up and down with the spider for our warm-up. So let's do it together, nice and slow and even. 2, 3, 4. Coming down. So that's one round going up and down the spider. So we want to make sure that we can do that 3 times in a row. Maybe you could pause the video now and do that 3 times in a row. Or, I mean, you can just do that anywhere, right? You could turn your volume down. You could be watching Netflix, right? No one has to hear you. It's not a great song, really. It's just a bunch of frets in a row. So nobody needs to hear you. All you need to do is just be touching your fingers all the time. I always forget, like I've been playing guitar for so long that I don't need to like kind of look at my right hand when I'm switching strings, but you're gonna have to, right? So that's why the notes aren't very hard. The notes are just in a row. We don't have to think about the notes too much, but we do have to think about other things, like what string are we supposed to be picking with this hand? So it's very common to reach this string, and then something's not right. What's happening? It doesn't. I feel like, well, I'm playing the wrong note with this hand, even though I'm moving the right fingers with my fretting hand. My right hand isn't playing the right string, and then so that's gonna end up being confusing. So my challenge to you is, can you play this 3 times in a row, up and down, without any mistakes? That's kind of like my magic number. If you can do something once, right, that maybe it's a fluke, right? If you do something twice, could be a fluke. If you do something 3 times in a row, then you for sure know it. And then when you go to sleep that night, you're gonna wake up the next morning being able to do it with confidence and muscle memory, right? That's what we're doing. We're not learning this stuff in our head. You're probably listening to some of the stuff being like, well, that seems pretty straightforward. But what we really need to do is get it into our hands. Most of music, our hands know how to do it before it comes out, right? We're developing our muscles so they know what to do before we even have to think about it. So try and do it 3 times in a row without mistakes. That means, right? If you don't switch your right hand, that's a mistake. So then maybe start over. So try that. Try to make that your goal this week, is to be able to do the spider up and down, nice and even, no mistakes, 3 times in a row. So you probably want to be able to play something that sounds good instead of that sounds just like 4 notes in a row. Right? We do that because the notes aren't hard and we can concentrate on timing and all those other things, but let's learn how to play something that sounds fun for a change. We're gonna learn about open power chords. So power chords are like a really fun kind of chord that basically only has 2 notes in it. There's all kinds of chords, but when a 2-note chord, a power chord only has 2 notes in it. And it's a bit of a trick where like less is more. Like, so if you have a power chord and then you have if you have an electric guitar and an amp, those 2 notes end up just sounding like really big and huge. And it really depends how big your amp is. But when I used to hear power chords, like listening to the radio, I would just think they sounded so big. It sounded like 1,000,000 notes at once. How are they playing that? It sounds like 1,000,000 notes. It's this huge sound. So I just thought like a power chord must be like all your fingers. I don't know. I didn't know how they did it. It just sounded too cool. But what I actually realized is a power chord is just 2 notes, and the space between those notes is really what it makes it sound like really, really big and awesome. So that's a power chord. I've got an open power chord uses an open string. So I've got the open A string. And then I have 1 note above it on the D string. So I am pressing the 2nd fret on the D string. And those 2 notes give me my open A power chord. And this might be a good chance to check out your amp. If you're playing an electric guitar and you have an amp, your amp might have like distortion on it. And for power chords to sound really cool, you want to kind of crank the distortion. So amps are all different. It might have a gain knob on it. This one has a gain knob, and gain is another word for distortion, basically. So if you turn that up, you're going to have more distortion. But also, if you turn the gain up too much, then the whole thing's going to be too loud. So then maybe you want to turn your volume down, so then you have more distortion, but your overall volume isn't going to go all the way up. So that's what I'm doing. Some other names might be like there might not be, it might not say gain. Maybe it'll just say distortion, right? So then you know, oh, it's distortion, we'll turn that up. Sometimes it doesn't say gain or distortion. Sometimes it'll say volume and master, in which case the volume is kind of going to be your distortion and your master is going to be kind of like the volume knob. But if you have an amp, you're going to find ways to like get lots of distortion out of it. I know it. So, oh, you hear that? Yeah, it's... So you can see that's got more distortion than it used to have. And it's making my power chord sound really big. I could play a full A chord, and you're going to see like the whole, if I add more notes to the chord, it's not going to sound as big. It's going to sound cluttered, kind of. Right? That still sounds fun, but it's not just the 2 notes together. That really opens up. It sounds like 1,000,000 notes. So see if you can do that with me. See if you can play your open A power chord by just putting your index finger on the 2nd fret on the D string and leaving the A string open. And then the trick is to only play those 2 strings. Right? So then it becomes kind of like more like, though that seems kind of easy, but then your right hand has the tricky job of only playing certain strings and not others, right? So I'll give you, so this is wrong, right? Playing all the strings is wrong. Right? And playing, that doesn't sound too bad, but I'm adding like that extra E string on the bottom. We don't really want that in there. And then we definitely don't want these top strings in there. So we really just want these 2 strings, just the A string and just the D string. Can you play it? And then if you can play it 3 times in a row, then you're on your way to playing an AC/DC song, Highway to Hell. Right? There you go. It's a good start on Highway to Hell. Those are all just 2-string chords, and they sound really big. So there's 3 different kinds of open power chords that we can play using this technique, because basically we need open strings to play open power chords. So do we all remember the names of the strings? Eddie, 8A, Dynamite, Goodbye, Eddie. You can make up your own if you want. If it's easier, you could do Ernest Saves Christmas. No, that doesn't work. I'm just going to stick with Eddie. So that's open A power chord with the open A string. We could use the open E string and have an open E power chord, which is going to be the same thing. So now I'm not playing the E string. I'm just leaving it open, and I'm putting my finger on the 2nd fret of the A string now, and I'm just playing those 2 strings. I'm not adding any more strings. It's not what we want. We just want the 2 lowest strings. So that one's a little bit easier, right? Because the E is the lowest, right? So it's kind of easier to aim for just those 2 strings. You can just... and then there's one more we can use with the D string, right? So we're going to leave the D string open. And then we're going to put our index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. And it's the same deal. So that's an open D power chord with the open D string. If we move down to the A string, this is an open A power chord with the A string. And then if we move down to the open E string, this is an open E power chord with the open E string and 2 on the A string. So see if you can switch all of those 3 power chords, and also make no mistakes with your right hand. One more time to the D. So now you have 3 big rock chords that you can use and have fun with. Another fun thing that you can do with these open power chords is you can kind of add like a little riff on the string. So if I'm doing, if I do open D power chord with my open D string and 2 on the G string, but then I can kind of switch from 2 to 4 on the G string here, keeping my open D string. So that open D string is like always ringing, but now I can change the note on the G string where my finger is. Two to 4. And that kind of gives you like a bluesy kind of riff that you could play. Or you could think of it as, if you know the song Come Together by the Beatles, the guitar part on there kind of uses an open D power chord, and it sounds like... So what am I doing? I'm keeping the open D string, and on the G string I'm going 2, 2, and then I'm adding 4, 4 with my ring finger like that. So it'll look like on the G string it's going to be 2, 2, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4, 4. Here come old flat top, he come grooving up slowly. He got juju eyeballs, I don't know all of the words. And then right there, he's gonna switch down to the open A power chords. So the same thing, open A string, and then we're going to go 2, 2, 4, 4 on the D string. He's got hair down below his knees. And you just hit a quick G chord there. But so if you can play with these open power chords and make that bluesy riff, that's pretty fun. You can play a good part of Come Together, or you can just make a blues song. If we were going to make a blues riff, we would start on open A. Right? 2, 2, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4, 4. And then now we'll go up to the open D power chord and do our blues riff. So open D chord. And then now back to the A. And finally, we'll use the open E power chord blues riff. 2, 2, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4, 4. And back to A. So there's a whole formula for like how long to hold those chords for the blues. Have you ever heard of the 12-bar blues? We'll review this in future lessons, but there's the blues is so much part of all the music you listen to that I think you're gonna find that it's somewhere in there. It's somewhere in your body, in your mind, in your memory. The blues is so much a part of all the music we listen to, you're gonna kind of figure it out. But it's a 12-bar formula. And then so you're going to start off on the A chord. So this is blues in A. We start on A. And you're going to play that for 4 bars. And 4 bars is, I like to think of it as like that's as long as you can play it without getting bored of it, right? So imagine you picked up a guitar and you found this sweet blues riff just on your own. You didn't even need a teacher. You're like, oh, if I just play that open string and then I play the string above it, if I go 2, 2, 4, 4. Oh man, I've created this amazing sound. I love it. And I'll never get bored of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2. I love this. 3, 4. 3, 2. Still not tired of it. 4. Maybe I'm getting tired of it. Maybe I need to switch to something. And then you're going to switch to the next chord, up to the next string, D. 1. Yeah, there we go. That fits perfectly. Oh, this song. But now I kind of miss the old chord. So that was 2 bars. But now we're going to go back to A. 3, 2. So 2 bars on A. And we're getting bored of that. So we need one more trick. We got everything we could out of the A, and then we went to the D, and that was fun for a while, but then we wanted the A back. So now we need one more trick to wrap it up, and that's going to be the E chord. 2, 2, 3. And then we got to wrap it up back on A. 1. So now let's play through it all together, counting the bars. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 2, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 bars starting out on A, 2 bars switching to D, and then you switch back to A for 2 bars, and then you switch to E for 2 bars, and then back to A for 2 bars, and that makes 12 bars. That's your 12-bar blues. How's your guitar doing? Is your guitar still in tune? I told you before that you generally, if you're playing guitar, have to tune it a lot. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows how to use a tuner. They're all kind of different, right? But most of them have some kind of needle. Even if it's not a needle, maybe it's just like part of it lights up. So we're gonna start with the E string here. Can you see the tuner there? You got a good shot? Right on. So can I see the tuner? That's a good question. So E, oh, and look, my guitar's not even making noise, but my tuner can still pick it up. And it's lighting up green right in the middle, which means it's quite in tune. If it wasn't in tune, I'm going to put it out of tune right now. I'll let you hear it too, so you can hear what it sounds like to get in tune. Right, so you can kind of see. So right now it's confused about whether it's D sharp or E. So D sharp is the note right below E, so now you can see it says E, and it's getting closer and closer to the middle. And so that's in tune. If I were to keep going, oh, now it's going past the middle, so that's not good. Now it's too high. Bring it back down. So it's right in the middle. So different tuners have different settings where like some tuners might have a setting called guitar, in which case it's only going to be listening for the notes that the guitar is supposed to be tuned to. It's only going to be listening for an E note, an A note, a D note, a G note, a B note, or an E note. And that can be good, right? If you don't, if you're just starting to tune your guitar. But if your guitar is so out of tune that it's not really close to any one of those notes, then your guitar is going to have, then your tuner is going to have a tough time. It's not going to read. It's just going to like be confused. And then you'll be confused and you'll be like. So you can also change it to a setting called chromatic. Chromatic just means every note, every single note in between. So it's not just listening for specific notes, it's listening for like every note that could be played. Or it might have a ukulele setting, in which case it's only listening for like notes on a ukulele. So if you're having a tuner, and I won't be able to help you because I'm not there, but these are things you might want to look up the settings. But you do just make sure that you can use your tuner with confidence, right? It's really going to make all the difference between you enjoying playing guitar and people enjoying you playing guitar. Make sure that you can use your tuner. Let us now learn one more chord to go with the chord that we learned last week. Does everyone remember E minor chord from last week? Here's a little review. For E minor, we're going to leave the E string open. We're going to put our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. We're going to put our ring finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. And then leave all the other strings open. So we can play all 6 strings, even though we're only fretting 2 of the strings. So that's our E minor chord. Now we're going to learn a C chord. So to make a C chord, we're going to start on the A string. We're going to put our 3rd finger, our ring finger, on the 3rd fret of the A string. And then I'm going to use my 2nd finger, my middle finger, on the 2nd fret of the D string there. And then we're going to skip the G string, leave it open. And then we're going to put my index finger on the 1st fret of the B string there. And then we're going to leave the E string, the high E string open. So one quick difference about this chord from the E minor chord. This chord we're only going to start strumming on the A string. Because one of the things that's really important about chords is it's important to have the right note of the chord on the bottom. And when I'm talking about the bottom, I'm talking about the lowness of the notes. So that's usually why you have a bass player in a band, to make sure that there's someone playing the right note on the bottom of the chord. But when you're playing guitar and you don't have a bass player, you really need to make sure. So I'll show you wrong. Wrong is playing all the strings for a C chord, so including that low string. Right, so you can hear that note on the bottom. It's not the worst. There's already another E string on top. So E's not a bad note, but it does, having that E note as the lowest note of the chord gives it kind of a muddled kind of sound. So we want to make sure, because it's a C chord, that the C note is at the bottom of the chord. So that means we skip the E string and we play the C note that's on the A string. We're going to learn about how to find notes on the strings in a different lesson. But this is a C note on the 3rd fret of the A string, and we want to make sure that that is the lowest note in our chord. So that means we start strumming on the A string. And again, you want to go through all the strings and make sure that they're all making noise. Oh, what's the matter with that guy? Something must be touching him, so then I have to adjust my fingers so that all the strings ring out. And we have a C chord. So now that we know 2 chords, we can start to switch them, because that's one of the tricks of guitar, is being able to switch chords and do it, get to the next chord in time to keep up with whatever song you're playing. So start practicing if you can find your E minor chord again. And then can you go from E minor and switch to your C chord? And see if you can do it 3 times in a row. Remembering to only start strumming on the A string for your C chord. So now, using our C chord, I want to show you, we're going to put our pick down from our right hand. We've been kind of using a pick to play our warm-ups and to strum our chords, but I'd kind of like to start teaching you a song where you can start using your fingers to like finger pick some things. So I'll play you the riff that we're going to learn, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but you're going to be playing this before you know it. You got a fast car, I want to take it to anywhere. Maybe we'll make a deal. Maybe together we could get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from 0, got nothing to lose. Maybe we can make something. Me, myself, I got nothing to prove. And if you know that song, then you know that that kind of riff, it goes throughout the whole song. You play that for a long, long time. And then you play a chorus, and then you play that riff for a long time. So the C chord and the E minor chord we already learned, those are 2 chords that are already in the song. So we're working up. You already know a good portion of a song already. So hopefully that's exciting. So the very first part of this riff starts off with the C chord shape, though. And instead of using our pick to strum, like say, like starting on the A string and strumming all the strings, we're going to kind of make a claw, like a 3-finger claw. And so your thumb is going to be kind of attached to the A string here. So your thumb is in charge of the A string, and then your index finger is going to be sort of in charge of the G string here. And then your middle finger is going to be in charge of the B string. And then, so the first thing is, can you, and it can be a little bit tricky, like how do you, so for your thumb, I'm putting my thumb on top of the A string and kind of grabbing it and like picking down. But for my other fingers, I'm kind of reaching under the strings and like kind of like plucking up. And then when I use all three fingers together, it's kind of like this like little, I'm picking down with my thumb and up, but it's kind of like I'm squeezing a ball or something, a tennis ball. So can you, with your three fingers, pick the A string with your thumb, and the G string with your index finger, and the B string with your the B string with your middle finger, all at once? And that might take practice. It's like one of those things that you're just not used to doing. And you're gonna want to develop, like you're developing a relationship with the strings, between your strings. Like how am I getting that noise? There's like friction, right? So something, I can just kind of feel my fingers, like how they're touching the strings, and then you kind of just have to do this at home, like kind of just like experiment with how hard you're plucking, and like trying to get the best sound, right? You might not get a sound, or you might get a sound you don't like, and so you kind of just, it's a lot of music. Oh, look at that, I just broke one of my nails. Classic. So much for having nails on my right hand. So just practice that, and then it's going to sound better when you add the chord on this hand. So it's up to you. I'm going to give you the option. Because we're only plucking certain strings, that means we don't have to like put our fingers on all these strings. Like, if we're plucking the A string and the G string and the B string, what string aren't we plucking? We're not plucking the D string, right? So we're kind of skipping that one. And then so if I think about it, I don't really need to like put a finger on the D string, even though that's part of my C chord. I don't really need to, because I'm not going to be playing that string. So you could keep your middle finger on the D string just for practice, but you don't really need it there. But you do need your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the A string right there. And then the trick, so the B string, obviously, like we're doing a little doodad there, right? Where we're like kind of going off and then on and off. So we're starting with our finger off. So basically, the only finger that I'm fretting right now is my ring finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. And then, but I'm still picking the G and the B strings. So here's me with my claw, and I'm picking all 3 strings at once. And it should sound like that. Or maybe for this song, I feel like we don't want as much distortion, so maybe I'll try and clean up my sound. There we go. So I just turned my gain down and my volume up, and I have a less distorted sound. So that's going to be kind of your homework this week, is to see if you can pluck all those strings. And then extra bonus, the trick is to pluck it only once with your right hand, and then can you put your index finger down on the B string and then take it off again. So that's kind of producing 3 notes just from plucking the strings once with your right hand, or your plucking hand. I'm going to get 3 notes out of it by going 0, 1, 0 on the B string. And that is really tricky. Okay, so you're gonna have to develop a relationship between your finger and the string, because what you're gonna find is like if you don't hit it hard enough, then as soon as you touch that string, you're just gonna like mute it, right? So if I don't do it hard enough, oh, I didn't hit it hard enough. I just kind of like stopped it from making noise. So I kind of have to press it hard enough that it doesn't stop the string. It's gonna make a note by pressing it down. It's not stopping the note. It's gonna make a note. So it's gonna take you a little bit of time to sort of like develop the strength to just like do that, right? But that's gonna be your homework this week, is to kind of develop like technique on your right hand, get this claw action going to be able to like pluck 3 strings at once and make that sound good. And then see if you can develop this technique of hammering on the first fret of the B string and pulling off of it. And it's not going to sound the way you want it to right away, but by the end of the week, it's going to be sounding much better, and you're going to be very close to playing this song. And we'll see you next week, and we're going to learn the rest of that. And thanks for stopping by.